Welcome to another episode of Regripped, and Max Homa and I are excited about this for a lot of reasons. We have buddy Marucci coming on, who's been a staple in and around the Merion area forever. We have Justin Rose joining us, who had a decent week back at the 2013 U.S. Open. And hey, you hear from Max all the time. You love Max Homa, even with the mullet. Max played in the 2013 U.S. Open at Merion. Max, this golf course is like 6,800 yards, and it was just terrorizing the best players in the world. Why was it so hard this week?
Yeah, it was interesting when I looked at the course before I had arrived, and then I saw the yardage, and then it rained like crazy Monday through Wednesday. You would have thought, hey, this is going to be a pretty low scoring U.S. Open, and after my first practice round, I realized that it was going to be pretty difficult. I remember going home and listening to or watching live from the U.S. Open, and Frank Noblo said it would be the lowest score in the history of the U.S. Open. And I was sitting there with my family, and I told them, I said, if this is the lowest score in the history of the U.S. Open, I need a new job because I'm not good enough I'm just not good enough to compete. Lo and behold, the winning score comes out to about even par. I think it was even par. What's difficult about it? A bunch of things. The greens are super deceptive. They have tiny little breaks, so I do think it's quite hard to putt. The rough was mean. I know when it rains that it makes the golf course softer, but it also makes that rough even thicker. So you did need to hit the fairway. The fairways are very, very small. And a lot of the holes there, I don't think that there's a particularly specific middle of the fairway. They just have subtle dog legs. You could take a 3-iron and go over the corner. You could take a 4 or 5-iron and play to the corner, then have a longer shot in. It's just very difficult to find what the middle of the fairway is. I know we're going to be starting on 10. 10 was one of those. 11, probably the hardest tee shot out there. To this day, I don't know where I was supposed to aim. We had an ish mark. It also taught me just about the, importance of having a phenomenal professional caddy. That stuff is important too. But just a golf course that demanded to be in the fairway, and you needed to, continue to hit good golf shots because the rough was just mean as could be. And it had, the finish, the par fours, it didn't feel like it played, it didn't play 6,800 yards. It felt like it played 75 because you're hitting a lot of irons off the tees. And the few holes you did need to hit driver on were very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Mickelson, who famously came up short again and will watch in this U.S. Open, didn't bring a driver this week. He had 5 wedges in the bag, which interestingly enough, as we'll see, might have actually hurt Phil. And we'll never know.
Too many.
He never answered that question. Some of the shots that cost him down the stretch were wedge shots, which is very surprising. Rory McIlroy was talking about Seminole earlier this week on a podcast, not ours, by the way, which is a huge bummer. But he was talking about Seminole, and he said Seminole's the type of golf course that makes professionals lose it with wedges in their hand. I feel like Merion must be the same way, right?
A little bit. You just don't have as many wedges as you think. I always thought that if you don't have a lot of wedges and you do get one, it puts a lot of pressure on it. But I don't remember hitting many wedges at Merion. 1 and 2, if you laid up, you could have them. But even, 4 is a long par 5. But even then, you need to hit a couple good shots to have a wedge in. I felt like I was hitting a lot of shorter irons, 9s and 8-irons, other than the par 3s minus 1 of them. So it just didn't feel like you were in attack mode a lot. I didn't play great that weekend. It was kind of a little bit of a blur, but it's a golf course that it's not that the greens were sectioned, but they had those subtle little breaks. And you really needed to hit quality shots in there, but you needed to be in the fairway to do so. And I felt like a lot of people who did have a lot of wedges in also probably missed a bunch of fairways. And that, wouldn't have been obviously a great plan. So yeah, I would agree with Rory in the sense that I think it puts a lot of pressure on the wedge play because you're not going to hit a lot of 7-irons close. But at the same time, I'm not sure it is quite as challenging in the same way. I think that Seminoles has a lot more to do with slopes on the greens and this and that, and a bit of the firmness. This week was soft as you could imagine U.S. Open, and it wasn't exactly target practice.
Yeah, Ada, let me just say this about Merion. This is the last U.S. Open it's hosted. This is the 5th U.S. Open. People love Merion. History buffs, if you dive back into old writing and journalism about Merion. I mean, they gush about this golf course. A.W. Tillinghast said this about Merion: "It is a coy but flirtatious maiden with mocking eyes flashing at you from over her fan." And that was A.W. talking about Merion, and it looks gettable. You know, I mean, you think about it, you look at the scorecard, you think, I can go out here and play it, and as we will watch, it is anything but. And I know Buddy Marucci will speak more on that as a guy that has been in and around Merion for so many years. Before we get to Buddy, I just wanted to say thanks, as we always say, thanks to the USGA and to Cisco for helping out put on Regripped. We have one more next week, and then we'll have to figure out, you know, how Max is going to do a Regripped, you know, before or after a tournament round. I mean, he's a media guy at this point, so we just have to make him do it. If you're looking for anything to watch as we continue to, you know, be at home for the most part, the USGA streaming app has over 250 hours of on-demand programming, including championship telecasts, films, and more. Just download the USGA streaming app in partnership with Cisco. The app's free and available on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV. And then Cisco, my goodness, you make Max and I look like we know what we're doing with technology, which is hard to do. It took us months to figure out how to use a mic. Max was talking into the wrong end, and I didn't know how to get the stand up. That's how we were so bad with mics. So Cisco makes us look unbelievable. They have pledged $225 million in products, cash, and services during all of the COVID-19 relief efforts. So a big thanks to Cisco and to the USGA as we get this bad boy going. Max, I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to welcome Buddy Marucci in. So we will have golf on in the background as this championship Sunday takes the turn. Now, some things about Phil Mickelson. He made 2 double bogeys on the opening 9 holes as he was going for his first U.S. Open championship. Gets to the 10th, and as you see, things start to happen for Phil. And at this point, you never know. I don't think, and I know you just recently watched this a couple of months ago, I don't think this feels as much like Winged Foot felt in terms of this is Phil's U.S. Open. Would you agree with that, or do you disagree?
I would agree a little bit. I do think that when the shot goes in on 10, you start to feel like, man, it is his week because something good, like great, finally happened. Unlikely finally happened on his side. But no, I didn't feel it was such a tight bunch at the top that it wasn't. Phil, I felt like was in command at Winged Foot. I think this one was just a phenomenal golf tournament. And as you referenced Phil, you know, not playing great on the front 9. We looked up the stats with our help of our friend Justin Ray. And Justin Rose was having about the best ball striking year I've ever seen. So I don't think that you could have thought that, you know, Phil was just obviously he's always one of the top dogs, but Rose was playing unbelievable. I think Duffner was up there. They had a lot of big names. So this one, Phil, is a little different than the Winged Foot one.
Yeah, just since you mentioned it, this is from Justin Ray at the 15th Club. Make sure you follow him on social media. I'm sure you are if you're watching this. Entering the U.S. Open in 2013, you called me about an hour and a half ago and went, this can't be right, dude.
Yeah, it
These
didn't make
stats
sense.
are too unbelievable. Rose, first on tour in strokes gained tee to green, first in total driving, first in par 5 scoring, second strokes gained off the tee, second in strokes gained approach, and second in strokes gained around the green. We're going to have Justin Rose join us here in a little bit. These are unreal. I mean, these stats, it's Rory in 2020, it's Tiger, you know, in his prime. I mean, these are what these stats tell us. But let's welcome Buddy Marucci in if Buddy's there. Buddy has done a great job with us over the years at Fox, and of course, famously finished a runner-up to Tiger Woods in that 1995 U.S. Amateur, as Tiger won 3 in a row, and of course won 3 U.S. Juniors in a row. Tiger was, you know what? Tiger was pretty good as an amateur, I think. I'm
debatable.
It's nice to see it roll over into the professional ranks, but. Yeah, I said Buddy Marucci, he's a legend in and around his area, in and around the nation, really. And when you talk about amateur golf, 50 USGA championships, that's a lot. That means you play for a long, long time. There you are, Buddy. What's up?
Shane, how you doing? It's great to see you.
Doing well. We're going to start the video here, Buddy, of this final round, and it's right when the players made the turn. Max Homa's on the line. Max played in the U.S. Open here at Merion back in 2013. And we were just talking a little bit about the golf course. You look at the scorecard, you look at the yardage. you see all these pros come in, and you feel like they're going to rip this place apart. You're basically the voice of Merion, for better or worse, and you're a guy that's played so many rounds there. Why was Merion so difficult this week, even with all the rain you guys had early in that week?
Well, I think the most important thing in preparing the golf course for the championship was to make sure that sounds a little cliche, but to make sure that the good shots ended up in the good spots and the bad shots ended up in the bad spots. And I think that's not unique to Merion, but we really worked hard to make sure that that happened. And the other thing that we were hopeful to require the players to do is to drive the ball in the fairway. And that doesn't happen necessarily week to week where it's that penal, but at Merion it is. And we did get a little rain in the beginning of the week, and that was a little troublesome. But about a day and a half, by Friday midday, the golf course was really in great condition. And certainly over the weekend, it turned out to play exactly the way the USGA and the club wanted it to play. So, we think that by requiring the players to drive the ball in the fairway, to put it in the right position, that the beauty of the design came out, and it did. And of course, the greens are very difficult, and I think generally speaking, we required good shots to be hit, and we penalized bad shots.
I'm gonna hit play, and we'll get into as you guys see here. Turn the volume of this thing down just a hair. This is at 10, so this really the kind of the shot for Phil to get him back into this U.S. Open.
Yeah, it's what was interesting about that shot, Shane, is that if he had been 6 inches one way or the other, he might not have been able to get the ball in the green. He drew a very good lie by missing that fairway, and that's a very short hole, and it's not a fairway you should miss. Kind of like Phil missed the first fairway as well. I mean, the first fairway was about 42 yards wide, and he was hitting an iron off the tee. So, I felt that it was certainly great because Phil's a great champion, but, he was very fortunate there to be able to make two on that hole.
Buddy, do you, speaking of missing the 9th fairway, or the 10th fairway, I missed that fairway, I think, 2 times. One of the charms I thought to Merion, and I'm curious if you could speak on this, was trying to find what the middle of the fairway was off the tee. I thought that it was very tricky. You have a lot of tee shots that you kind of have a bit of the fairways blind at 10 and 11. 10's not blind, but 10 I think was a little awkward of a tee shot. 11 is blind. Do you find that to be one of the main reasons this golf course seems to be revered by so many people, and why it does seem to be, especially in this U.S. Open, so difficult to find a bunch of fairways?
Well, Max, it's nice to see you. I think what happens in Merion is it's all about the angles. If you're going to hit it a certain distance, you have a different angle than if you're going to hit it farther. So you're basically driving in most of the fairways on a 45-degree angle, or maybe not that severe, but at 240 yards, there's one line, and at 280 yards, there's another line, and at 300 yards, there's another line. And some of those tee shots are over little hills and valleys, so you're not necessarily comfortable as exactly what line you should take, and I think that is part of the charm of the golf course. And it does make driving the ball in the fairway very difficult.
Buddy, if you could, just for anybody watching that doesn't know why, could you just explain the wicker baskets to people that might not understand why they're wicker and not flag sticks?
I just think that that's kind of a wise tale, but basically they're patterned after the farmers over in Scotland who used to tie their lunch on top of their staff for the sheep. It's nothing more or less than that. It was just something that was brought over, and I don't think there's any more to it. It's just there are a lot of wise tales, but that's basically what it was patterned after.
What's the best bounce you've ever seen? Yeah, that is a golfing story. What's the best wicker basket bounce you've ever seen? Have you ever seen one hit down into the hole?
I've never seen one hit down in the hole, but I have seen one stick in the hole or stick in the wicker. Well, the unwritten rule is that if it sticks in the wicker, you get to put it down on the lip of the cup. But
I like that.
yeah, I
would
think
do
you.
it too.
I'm not sure it would serve you well to stand there and try to line it into the wicker just so that would happen.
If I was
I
that
think
good,
you're
I think
gonna
I might
miss
just
it.
try to hit the green.
I think you're going to miss it more often than you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I gotta ask, you guys backed up the tee on 14 onto the putting green for this tournament. First of all, as someone who had never played in a PGA Tour event, let alone a major before, that was pretty shocking to be allowed to hit a golf ball with spikes on off of a putting green. But I just wondered what maniacal person decided to do that, because that was like 490 yards straight up the hill in front of everyone who was warming up to putt. That was the other part. As a 22-year-old who didn't know anybody, that was the most intimidating shot ever.
Well, you figured it out, Max. That's exactly what we were doing. But no, that teeing ground was we teed off that teeing ground in the 2009 Walker Cup, and the USGA used that kind of as an experiment to see if it would enhance that 14th hole, which is a beautiful little dogleg up the hill to the left with the fairway sloping to the right. Um, when Mike Davis came in to look to do the Open, we expanded the putting green because for the Walker Cup, that hole played about 470, maybe 465 yards, and Mike wanted to move it back. So we went through the exercise of rebuilding that putting green and expanding it back about 25 to 28 yards. And Max, you're right. The hole was 496 from the very back of the hole. But as luck would have it, Mike only used that once. So we went through a lot of effort, and we have since removed that. And if we're fortunate enough to play a championship there again, an Open championship, you will be teeing off the putting green, Max. I hope you're there when it happens, but it won't be quite as far back. It'll probably be more like the 465 spot. And it will be helpful to have spikes because it gets a little slippery on that putting
It gets a
green.
little slippery. Yeah, you don't want to fall in front of everybody.
No, that's part of
that. You just saw
it.
this approach by Rose was just, I mean, again, we talked about his stats and what he did throughout the year headed into this U.S. Open, and kind of defined his season, really. I mean, that was a controlled shot in there and hits it to a foot. And as we'll watch as this thing unfolds, I mean, birdies, Max, all week had to feel like you were picking up a shot and a half on the field.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of chances coming in other than 12 and 13. At least that's what it felt like to me. 14 through 18 were probably still my favorite finishing stretch of golf. Just as far as difficulty goes, I thought that it was incredibly demanding. We just talked about 14. 15 was a nightmare of a tee shot and a nightmare of a green. 16, one of the coolest shortish par fours I played, and then 17, 18, just complete brute. So you kind of had to get something going on 12 or 13, because you have a couple greens that are quite a bit more receptive, or at least lend themselves to birdies a little bit more, because you're not going to make a whole lot after that.
Yeah, and I think that's really the beauty of the golf course, Max. They're kind of three sections to the golf course. You kind of go out, and it's not too well. For the Open, it wasn't quite this way, but for normal play, it's not too rigorous going right out. Then in the middle, it gets a little more challenging, and then at the end, it gets very challenging.
Yeah,
And
5, 6 were like where the golf course turns. 1 through 4, not so bad. 5, 6, you get punched a little bit. And
Right.
you hope to get to 10, without giving up too many strokes. And then you only had a few holes until you had to, put the face guard back on.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the neat things about the golf course is that it gives you a lot of looks, and you're never quite sure what's coming, but you've got to come back, Max, and see it now. Gil did a restoration. We were closed for 18 months, and we'll get Shane and you up there and take a look at it now. You won't believe it. It's spectacular, and and hopefully we'll get another championship back. But I think you're absolutely right. When you cross the road and play 13, you get a little bit of a breather there. And if you remember, Rose played 12 and 13. He birdied those 2 holes in the final round where Phil had made the bogey on 13. But I went back and looked, and I think Duffner was the only person. I mean, Duffner made 6 birdies in the final round. He made a 7 on the 15th hole to take him out of the championship. But other than that, I didn't. And Rose made 5 in the last round birdies. But other than that, I didn't see anybody who had made more than 4 or 5 birdies in any one round. It may have happened, but I didn't see it.
It's an awesome golf course, buddy, and we appreciate you joining us and taking the time, just giving us kind of a look into the golf course, a look into Merion, and we will check in with you at some point. A guy that, if there's a man out there that knows about USGA stuff, it's Buddy Marucci. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it, buddy.
Well, Shane,
Thanks,
it's great
buddy.
to see you again. Max, take care of yourself. All the best when the season starts again. And
Thank you.
I really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing some golf soon.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sounds good.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So, Max, a few things I've noticed during the round. First, totally forgot this was the Octopus Pants U.S. Open portion. That was catnip for social media stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, he's got the Octopus Pants. You know, they had the scripting come out. Second, Ricky Fowler went with a different shade of orange shirt pant combo.
He did. Had the slightly off orange, as they say. I do want to point out, I know we just mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it a lot. This 11th hole, to me, was the quintessential point, or the main point I'm trying to make as far as examples go. Phil hit the fairway and Hunter hit the fairway. They both had a pretty decent look with a wedge in their hand, right, to make a birdie, or to at least have a putt for birdie, which is what you want in U.S. Open. I missed that fairway both days, and it's not a particularly easy fairway. I missed that fairway both days and had an absolute nightmare of a time making 5, let alone 4. Couldn't get it over the creek in 2. What Buddy was saying is they put a main demand on hitting the fairway. So what happens is you watch someone play a hole, maybe the group in front, and you're like, oh, this hole's pretty easy. Then you watch the next guy play, and you say, man, this might be the hardest hole on the golf course, just because it just puts such a precedent on being in the fairway. Every hole, like 12, we just saw Rose hit it close. Every hole, I thought 12 was quite easy if you were in the fairway. I happened to be both times because the green was very receptive, and the ball actually funneled to the hole. But none of that matters if you're laying up. You know, you might have a better look at par, but you're definitely not making birdies. So that's what I think the beauty of this golf course was. They have some long par 4s. I think the end, minus maybe 16, the end is very, very long, 14, 15, and 18. So it's not like you can just get up there and hit a fairway finder. But I remember looking back on that tournament, if I had to go back and play it in another U.S. Open, I think tee shots where I was hitting 4 irons off of, I'd actually club back down to 5. What Buddy was saying made a lot of sense, that your lines from 240 to 300 every 10 yards, that line was a humongous difference. So you would have the option to take it over the corner, but you better have a very specific line, or you could lay up to the fattest part of the fairway where you don't need to worry about the run out. And you can see the middle of the fairway, and then you will have a better opportunity with an iron from the fairway, but you are probably going to be hitting a 7 or 6 iron. So you're playing a lot of holes oddly. You're hitting 5 or 6 iron, 4 or 5 iron off the tee, and then 6, 7 iron into the green, which obviously is quite different.
Some stone one on 12. Wasn't putting well. You know, we ripped off those stats from Rose's year, and everything was unreal outside of the short stick. I mean, the flat stick. He was 156th in strokes gained putting. That probably helped. I mean, that one helped, I would assume, the stats when you pour in like a 35-footer. What about, oh, here we go. This was when Justin Rose wasn't a human. This is when he was just not a human
one
being.
Of the most amazing finishes. They had this on the Golf Channel, I think, yesterday, and I didn't remember 16. I remember 17, this putt, obviously. Hit an unreal chip, almost makes it, and then Rose does that, and then also that. Uh, and then 18, the guy gets up there and does it again. Now, Phil did have about 8 feet for par here. He probably would have made it, but what a way to close the door.
All I remember about that Ryder Cup was all I could think was, if they ever have another Ryder Cup here, they need to just make a new 17th hole, because I just felt like the Europeans won it every single match. They'd make like a 30-footer or a 20-footer or 18-footer. And I was just thinking that hole needs to go away if the United States wants to contend.
Absolutely. Fun, stupid fact about this tournament. This was the first time I ever talked to my now wife.
Really?
Yeah, we had finally started chatting it up via the cellular phone, and I was. I think I finally reached out. Shocker, classic me on Twitter, and she had tweeted something about the U.S. Open having a rain delay. We were in a rain delay on Thursday, and she said, "Can somebody get this rain delay? Whatever, killing my vibe." And I think I responded, "Yeah, you're telling me," because I was actually on the golf course. But yeah, so that was my smooth way in,
Little known fact about this U.S. Open is Justin Rose's clothing sponsor at the time, sent out a media kit. I got all his shirts, all 4 of the shirts. He wore all 4 days. Loved those shirts. Wore them I probably had them for 2 or 3 years in the rotation.
Very nice.
That was back when you'd get those ridiculously awesome media packs. Remember when Tiger hit the flagstick at Augusta and it went back in the water? Nike sent a full thing of those shirts that week too. That was nice. Justin Rose is joined, I believe. Justin, are you there? He's headed in. He's on the screen, and he's going to be.
What a time warp! We're watching him hit a 3-wood, and
unreal.
Talk to him. What technology we have these days.
Thank you, Cisco. That's all we can say.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's up?
Hey, can you see me and what have you?
I can see you, and I'm watching you stripe a 3-wood.
You look great. You sound great.
All right, perfect. I can do that. What's up, Max?
What's up, man? How's the quarantine going?
Dragging.
I give the same answer.
Yeah, dragging. But we're getting through it, I think. The end is in sight, which is great.
The end is near. Yeah. Are you playing Colonial?
Yeah, that's the plan, bud. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool.
I'm excited. What about yourself?
Yeah, I got to do something, man. I can't wait.
Cool, dude. That's great.
Justin, I wanted to start. We were going through your stats headed into this U.S. Open, and they were ridiculous. But I feel like the thing that kind of followed you around throughout the week was how much prep went into Merion. Can you expand a little bit on your prep and how much time you not just spent on the golf course, but kind of trying to figure out this short but diabolical golf course?
Yeah. I guess, it was the first time I'd ever really single-mindedly prepared for a major championship. And, in my mind, I went up the week before. I think it was actually just myself and Phil who actually spent a lot of time on the grounds the week prior. And I think it was a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I spent 3 full days out at Merion, 8 hours per 9 holes, just really trying to map it out. And, it's a US Open, right? So I thought, okay, how do you shoot even par around this golf course? So I was trying to plot my way around, keep it in play here, keep it under the hole there. And, that's the way I was trying to strategize. I then went back to Florida because the whole reason for preparing really hard, a major championship for me is, you need to understand as many variables as possible. And the way the USGA set up different pin locations, the strategy changes greatly on a hole. So I was just trying to figure out all the ways of playing the golf course. I then went back to Florida to try to rest up and be mentally fresh because it's all very well being ready for a Thursday, but you have to be your best on a Sunday if you're, in order to win. So I felt like it was really important to have that weekend to freshen up rather than trying to learn the golf course Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of tired. So anyway, point being, I went back to Florida on the weekend and it obviously rained a lot there in Pennsylvania, and I clicked on the Golf Channel and I heard all the pundits saying, hey, it's going to be a bloodbath out there. These guys are going to go low. There could be a 62. It's going to be double digits under par. And I'm like, geez, that was a waste of time. I'm kind of trying to shoot even par. Hope I make the cut. But I kind of had no choice. My plan was to arrive back at Merion Tuesday afternoon, and I kind of just went with my game plan. And interestingly enough, you pick up little bits of information sometimes when you have that relaxed environment, and you always tend to kind of speak to a local caddy or the club pro or somebody, and they kind of give you some insights into the golf course. And one of the coolest insights I got during that preparation time was, a local caddy telling me that Merion is kind of like a good theatrical play. The first 6 holes are drama, the middle 6 are comedy, and then the final 6 are tragedy. So it sort of
I
pieced
love
the golf
that.
course.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It kind of pieced the golf course together for me in my head of like where you had to be patient, where you could maybe get on a little bit of a run. And that proved really true on the first round. I teed off on the 11th hole because it was a bit of a weird start there, but I teed off on number 11. So pretty much early in my round, I'd played all of the tragedy and then all of the drama holes, and I was 4 over through 11, 4 over through 11. And but I kind of realized I had some of those cool little comedy holes to play, some of the short par fours, some of the holes where you could make birdie. So I stayed patient. It gave me a reason to stay patient. That soundbite. And, I birdied 3 of my last 6, I think, to shoot 1 over, and not too bad.
That's awesome. I played this. I was an amateur. This was my first ever PJ Tour event. I would say I only had 2 of those comedy holes in 36 holes. The rest was about tragedy. I didn't really have a lot of drama, but I mean, I didn't get a lot of the joy of the golf course. But I had a question for you. Like we said, we looked at your stats. They are remarkable. I didn't think that they were real. We had to call a buddy to make sure you were second in strokes gained off the tee, second in approach, and second in strokes gained around the green. Did not think that was even possible. But I was curious, did this? Yeah, I think the only other person who's sniffed that is 05 Tiger Woods. I hear he's quite good. So I hope that you can you can hang your hat on that because that's remarkable. But I was curious if this was the best you had ever played, or at least at the time, or if it was just one of those weeks where it finally kind of came together for you. You had already had it, obviously an awesome career, but first major. I was wondering if the physical stuff just all clicked, or if it was more, the ball just wanted to go in the hole maybe a little bit more at the right times.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I look back at it, I mean, I think I was top 5 in the world. I think I was maybe the 5th player in the world at the time, and starting to try to believe that my career was trending in the right direction in terms of competing in major championships. I'd been through a nice run of play from 2010 where the tournaments that I had won were getting bigger and bigger. So I was beginning to sell myself the story that, hey, major championships, the next step here. But I was also very aware that a lot of great players have gone through their career without ever winning a major. So I kind of felt that the physical side of my game was beginning to show up, and it was going to continue to show up. But by showing up, I was going to put myself in positions in majors, and I was going to win some and lose some, or I was prepared to win some and lose some. So I think the one thing that happened for me at Merion, even though I hadn't won a major championship, I was very aware that when the moment arose, pun not intended, but when the moment came, I didn't want the moment to be too great and feel like I was going to strangle it. So in my head, I was like, okay, you're playing really well. Your career's on the right track. You're going to create lots of chances to win majors. So when it's about to happen, just let it. So don't be scared to lose. Almost was my attitude, and I had a really process-driven, mindset that week, and I kept running it. And in my mind, like I could have walked off the 72nd hole, walked straight to the first tee, and kept going.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't have like that real hardcore finish line. I was just really very much in the process. But just going back and watching, like this was very much gut check time. I mean, I just saw I hit it into the bunker here at 15. I don't know how long we're going to talk. I mean, at 14, excuse me. I don't know how long we're going to talk, but I do remember thinking, come on, man, like I'm leading the US Open, a few holes to play, and now it just starts lashing with rain.
Yeah.
It was just another variable of like, really? Now you got to deal with this as well. And I've always been a guy, for some reason, that when it's raining, I never feel like I have control of the golf ball off the tee. Like I just feel like driver, wet. I don't know what it is. I just feel like it's not really a go-to. I always feel like I've got to hit 3-wood or an iron, or, so that was just another thing to contend with. But lucky this rain that we're watching here kind of cleared it out pretty quick. It was only around for 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah, and it comes in right when you're getting to the tragedy part of the round. Obviously, I thought 14 was one of the hardest holes. But I thought the 15th tee shot was where a lot could go wrong. If you pulled it, 5-10 yards left, it could hit that cart path and go out of bounds. So you're right to say that rain comes at not the best time if it hangs around.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, to be honest, 15th is probably my favorite hole on the golf course. I just love the way the road is right there, the way the out of bounds had no rough kind of in front of it. It just really felt quite intimidating. And I played that hole very conservatively. If we get to it, I hit iron off the tee there, whereas if you look at Phil, he hit driver off the tee and gave himself. Really, that's where the tournament, I think, flipped. And if he keeps his wedge shot online, there's a bit of a backstop. Like because obviously he's going to spin it from whatever he had, 100, 110. If he kept it right of the pin, he's great. The fact he hit a little left of the pin, spun down to the front, made bogey, like for me, that's the golf tournament right there. And then this could have been the golf tournament right here for me. This is the jacket's on now. I've never really felt comfortable in a wetsuit, even though I'm grown up from the UK. I've gotten a little soft, Max, playing in the States.
I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna. You look good. I thought you were gonna feel the most comfortable. It's supposed to be me from Southern California who hates that thing.
Yeah, and you can see the way I was playing that. I was trying to hit like a shallow draw bunker shot. The sand was wet, and I kind of just got in there with a hosel. I mean, weird flight, right? It's come out with a ton of spin, but I was obviously coming in super shallow, trying to like flip my right hand and like almost hit a little draw bunker shot in there. But just caught literally shanked it, really.
I've got that shot.
Yeah, as you can see, it kind of squirts off to the right. Whoop, wasn't quite what we were intending.
That's where the crowd goes nuts because the ball spun back and you hate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, did you see that shot? It spun.
Yeah, look how cool that was.
Hey, Justin, I was reading some stuff about you prepping. I already talked about it. I read an interesting story. You texted your caddy a picture of a tunnel before the week to remind him that you guys needed to stay focused. Do you do that a lot? I mean, do you come up with tricks, mental tricks, things like that to keep you on a certain track, or if things are going well, to keep you engaged, before the rounds, before the weeks?
I think we always have little tricks of the trade and things that work for us, but it was weird. My wife had bought this photograph, and it was just happened to be in the house, and I walked past it one day, and I'd probably walked past it 1,000 times and never really resonated. And I've walked past it one day, like I'd been up to Merion. This was the weekend, being back at home, and obviously I'm absorbing all of the information, and I just walked past it, and it just hit me as clear as day that basically good golf existed in the tunnel. The process was the tunnel, and everything outside of the tunnel was what if, or so what. So what if you're leading the US Open? So what if the crowd's are loud? Like none of that. Like anytime I felt myself think about something, I said, so what, and just try to get kind of back into the tunnel. And then there were some shadows. It was like a colonnade, basically is what it was, like a tunnel of like a colonnade. And then there were like 4 shadows across in the tunnel, and that represented each step of my process for each golf shot. So yeah, it was one of those moments, and I tried to use it from that moment forevermore. And obviously these things tend to get stale after a while, right? So I think it was something that definitely inspired me that particular week, and maybe in the short time afterwards, but it's not something that I think you're always having to adapt to where you are currently.
That's awesome. Justin, when I think about this tournament, when I think about you winning this tournament, I think of one very specific thing that sticks out. It was your drive on 18. That was one of the trickiest tee shots I have ever personally played, and I was curious if the tee shot on 18 followed by the approach shot were your best ever, given the circumstances, back-to-back swings of your career.
Yeah, I would say yes, and I think what made them so is that I couldn't escape the situation at that point. You can kid yourself into process all you want. I'm one shot at a time, I'm moving to the next hole, and blah, blah, blah. You get onto the 72nd hole of the US Open, and you're faced with that shot at Merion, you know the situation. I could hear from the crowd behind me. I kind of knew exactly what Phil was doing. If he made birdie, the place lit up. Like, you knew what was going on. It was hard to avoid it. So all I remember from that tee shot was, again, I had this sort of, I don't know, courage just to let it go. I knew that if I steered it off that tee, or if I tried to over control the outcome, I was probably going to make a bad swing and miss that fairway. So I remember focusing on the first 2 feet of my backswing, and then like making sure the first 2 feet was smooth off the ball, and then just let it go. It was a bit of a sort of a hold up fade, which is probably the right shot off that tee, but I think also, Luke Donald had hit one way right as well, which made the second shot probably trickier because he was there getting a ruling. And it was a good 5 minutes really waiting to hit my second shot. And I remember the big flag behind the green, the big American flag, just sort of going gently right to left, but occasionally it would flick a little bit into me. So I was there kind of going back and forth, draw 4-iron, fade 3-iron, draw 4-iron, fade 3-iron. Like in my head, I'm probably making that decision 10 times. And then my caddy and I had hardly any dialogue. My eyes were closed. It came time to make the decision. I said, Fuchs, what do you like? He said, 4-iron. So that's sort of, that's how that went down. And then obviously I hit beautiful 4-iron, and the crowd noise, I was like, whoa, where is that? And then I walked up, I was dying to get up to the green. I couldn't get up the hill quick enough, I was kind of peering over the crest and didn't see my golf ball. And I'm like, what? Where is it? And from that point, I thought, oh no, it's probably just in the thick rough. But fortunately, it was just in that first cut. And from that point on, it was like improvisation, to be honest with you. There was a shot on the previous day, 17th hole, third round. I had like a similar shot. I hit a good iron shot. It just crept off the right-hand side of the green. I was in that first collar, the collar, and the ball was just sitting down, and I thought I could get to it with a chip shot. And I thought I'd catch ball, but I didn't catch ball. I caught some grass between club face and ball, and it literally, because it was a short chip shot, it came out and went like 3 yards and left myself 20 feet. And that's all I could think of. It was exactly the same lie. It was like a tiny chip shot, so you couldn't put in any speed, and if you didn't get the perfect contact, the ball was going to go like nowhere. So that I was kind of working. I was having to improvise. I didn't want that to be the scenario, so I took my 3-wood out, put my hands behind the ball to add a bit more loft, and just popped it onto the green and let it trickle up to the hole. But it's funny, you can practice all you want, you can prepare all you want, and you'll find yourself in a situation and you find yourself improvising to win your first major, So I thought that was kind of interesting. It just shows you can't perfect this game. The lies and the situation, and there's always going to be something that you're going to have to adapt to, and that's the cool part about it.
That's very cool. Considering you hit 2 perfect golf shots and still had to go through the golf part of golf. Question: when you're nervous over a shot, like you were obviously on the 18th tee or the second shot in the 18th fairway, do you ever just tell yourself, "Hey, my swing's literally perfect, so the ball's probably going to go pretty straight"?
It's funny that no, you're like
that's got to help.
I know how many things can go wrong. That's the problem.
All right.
But one thing I've learned in my career, and it took me a long time to learn it, was just because I'm nervous doesn't mean I'm going to hit a bad shot.
Yeah.
It started to just occur to me how many good shots I've hit under pressure, how many putts I've made when my hands are shaking, and the minute you don't associate those feelings to failure, it's amazing how things change. And now I sort of relish that feeling. I relish the Ryder Cup type of nerves, and they don't come along every day. I don't know about you, Max, but once you've been on tour a few years, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they become quite routine, even if you're playing well and you're in the lead. And it's really only down the stretch that it really changes, where the outcome really presents itself. So, we don't play golf, I think, under a ton of pressure. Even if you win a golf tournament, I feel like it's maybe the last 20 shots of the 260 you hit that you really feel it.
Right. I've always said if you're really, really nervous, that means you're playing really, really well. So you should probably try to remind yourself of that.
No, that's a great point. I went through a period in my career when I was missing cut after cut after cut, and I felt
Same here.
The pressure of making a cut on a Friday is almost harder than trying to win a golf tournament, because your game is not as reliable.
For sure. So when you're hitting that iron off 15, are you just trying to play to short of the corner on that left, so you could have a free swing off the tee to not worry about the out of bounds, I guess, through that fairway?
100%. With 3-iron, I know that if I pull it, I'm safe. I might be in the rough, but I'm not going to make 7 or 8 like Sergio. Because that became the story of that hole. I think Sergio made like an 8 there day one, and you can't unhear things sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to hear that. Yeah. Once you've heard it, that's it. It's in there. So anyway, I was always planning to play the golf hole that way, because I don't think I could quite carry the right side, maybe like Phil did. So for me, it was I always felt like I had to aim a little bit more at the fence or at the out of bounds. So The other option would have been a slide, like left to right driver, but you double cross that, you're in big trouble. So yeah, 3-iron was because of basically I could aim left and hit it.
Awesome.
That left me a 6-iron into the green though.
Yeah, to a tough pin, to a tough green.
Yeah, your driving was pretty remarkable. 75% of fairways hit that week at Merion, and the fairways were about 4 yards wide. So that'll work. Justin, last thing I want to ask before we let you go: how many wicker baskets did you bring home? Do you have these things in some sort of a display?
Can you sign a wicker basket?
It's not just the flag sticks. It's so unique. I mean, you got to check that stuff on a flight.
No, absolutely. No, the weird thing is I've got like an absolute radar on tour. If I see the Merion logo, or if I see, the US Open Merion, I can see a spectator like from like 40 yards away if he's wearing that shirt. Personally, I can see that. But no, Merion,
awesome.
I mean, listen, those wickers are like gold dust. They don't give them away lightly. And they very generously gave myself one, and they gave my caddy Fooch one. And they're very rare, like the full, especially the back 9 ones. They don't come around that quickly or that easily. So I have one, and it's pride of place. I have a little display area in my garage, which is kind of like my golf room, my practice room. Got like a little homage to the US Open in the corner, and the wicker is pride of place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, Justin. We're going to watch the rest of this. You can watch it if you want. I mean, we're not going to kick you out of that. But we really appreciate it. That was so kind of you to join us and just chat through the golf course and the championship and really the strategy. I mean, the strategy talk, I feel like is just as good as really talking about how you played that week, because a lot of the stuff I feel like you had to do around this golf course was days and weeks before that first tee shot on Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. And just on that, I think for Merion to host the US Open, it was quite an awkward sight. We had to use the West Course for a lot of the facilities to get the guys. So all the player staging was always way out of the way. And then we were literally climbing through people's backyards to get to the first tee, and it was definitely a logistical challenge. But I fell in love with Merion because I went there the week before, and I saw it as the members see it. I turned up, I saw the locker rooms, which is super old school. I hit balls in the net up in the locker room. You then have lunch on the veranda out there, and it's literally on the first tee. I mean, people are chinking away, with their cups and their saucers and their water and stuff, and then literally goes dead silent when you're about to step up. And it's a weird kind of pressure too, hitting a ball in front of just the members there. So, but that's kind of what I fell in love with Merion, and I think the guys that didn't see it like the members see it found it hard to relate to it, in the US Open as well because of the staging. So that was just another key factor, I thought, in terms of why I was able to kind of get so much into the week.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, and that was good. That's a good shot right there. You know what? In control of your irons, it seems to be the thing here. Distance control.
Hey, listen, boys. It's been lovely to walk down memory lane. I should probably do it more often. I mean, I haven't watched this back, I don't think, more than once. So this is it's a treat for me as well.
Good. Well, thanks for being on, Justin. This is great. I'm looking forward to watching you clutch up down the stretch. This is awesome to hear all your thoughts, and I'm learning just listening to you. So I appreciate that.
All right, Max. Well, I'll catch you on tour soon. We'll have a practice round, bud.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
See you, buddy.
See you, fellas. Take it easy.
All right, see you, Justin. Thanks so much.
Thanks again.
Max, I was going through some Twitter stuff. I kind of forgot that Stricker was like right here.
Well, he's known for one. This is it, unfortunately. This is what he's known for. Out of bounds drive and then a cold shank OB was not ideal. It's crazy how hard that tee shot is. Like that OB is
on 2
in the right, like just in the right rough on the right side of the fairway. This one, I am very, very, very knowledgeable about this one. You gotta aim for the camera tower. It would have kicked back.
If you're gonna shank it, you want to buzz a tower.
If we learned anything from Justin, it was about how important preparation is, and he just don't know if Strick prepared enough. I don't think he charted where the towers were enough.
Well, you're seeing a huge number from Stricker, basically, ruined his chances of this U.S. Open. Justin Rose didn't make anything worse than a bogey all week long in Merion. All but 6 players who made the cut made at least one double or worse. So, you're talking about a guy that's driving the ball incredibly well, not making big mistakes. And as Justin was on, I mean, Phil Mickelson's probably what doomed his chances was that tee shot. What was that? Was that the lob wedge? Was that what he hit?
Yeah, I think he switched to one club higher. If I remember right, Bones said something about how if you get a shot riding the wind here, it's going to be too much club. And I don't know if they disagreed on where the wind was or the golf club, but I do remember that when he hits it, he tries to hit this little draw in there. I think essentially the cliche golf term is try to get cute, try to hit something real close, which obviously Phil, one of the best wedge players of all time, has every right to. But I think the idea was let's hit something to, maybe 15 feet. Phil's trying to hook spin one in there. We see where Justin Rose made his birdie putt from, right in the middle of the green. He gets a shot riding with the wind a little too much, and it flies, I'm going to say, honestly, 15 yards longer than his number. The tee shot is in a little bit of a little bit in the back where you have some cover. So obviously that rain had come in. Obviously the wind comes in when that happens. But yeah, of all the shots he's probably ever hit, that one is maybe the most shocking, and just not a good time. Like Justin said, you once you finish that hole, you are not playing one even halfway easy hole coming in. So that was probably a very disappointing one. But all these things are so much easier said. 2020 hindsight. He's the best wedge player at this time. He's trying to hit this shot that goes close, and he's trying to take advantage of one of his few wedge opportunities, and he unfortunately either misjudged the wind, the club, whatever it was.
I don't think Phil gets enough credit. I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I don't think Phil gets enough credit throughout his career for never being afraid to try stuff. I mean, this week doesn't use a driver, goes 5 wedges because he feels like he's not going to hit a whole bunch of drivers. As we have watched, you're not seeing a lot of drivers. Did you hit a whole bunch that week, or was it, as my favorite term in the world, less than driver was more the play?
It was a lot of less than drivers, although I thought that 14 through 18 really forced your hand. It was quite interesting to hear Justin say that he did hit iron off 15, because if I had to look back, that was one of the holes I wish I would not have hit driver on. It was just too demanding of a tee shot. Again, a bit of it is lack of experience. I assumed everybody on the PGA Tour, I mean, it's not the smallest fairway ever, but I just figured everyone needs to be hitting driver here so you could have a pitching wedge in your hand. And, everybody on the PGA Tour must hit it straight enough to be able to do that. And to hear one of the best players in the world and one of the best players of our whole generation, or my whole generation, say that, you could easily double cross that and hit it out of bounds. That was interesting, because that's not something that was something I thought that would not go through his head at the time. So, a lot of drivers coming in, but definitely not a lot, or a few drivers coming in, but not a lot throughout the week, man. You didn't have to hit one on 2. I kept trying to, but 4 you would hit one, and then 5 and 6 I thought you needed to hit one. But other than that, you could get around the golf course without hitting one. For the rest of the day, maybe minus 18. So very interesting golf course. I'm not an architect buff, man, but like this, I don't know how you could do a whole lot better than this. I understand it's not the width and angles of this, people on Twitter seem to love, but this is remarkable. Every tee shot is uncomfortable, and there's really no real reason for it. 15 is the only hole I remember with significant amounts out of bounds. So it's just obviously 2, I guess, but there's just trouble by missing the actual fairway, because you're not going to get to the green. Like, you just can't. We just watched Phil. Right. Phil trying stuff. I think he does get quite a bit of credit for trying things. Like, he took out a gap wedge randomly from his bag at the Masters, or at Augusta, because he said he never hit him. He's tried the 2 drivers. He's tried no drivers. He's tried it all. I do think he gets enough credit for that. I think he's quite smart and does a ton of research. What I don't think he gets enough credit for along those lines is trying these shots that he's worked on under pressure, trying the hook wedge, whatever, on 13, because he's going to spin it to a foot, trying that little choppy 3-wood he just hit
from 190,
whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I think he does a lot of so much practice and works on all these shots, but I think I do too. I'll work on these little 60-yard hooking lob wedges, or these pitched 7-irons that I'm going to hit from 150. But when it gets into the tournament, it's very, very, very rare I will hit that shot because it's just you never feel prepared enough. I think that he, along the lines of the question you were asking and the way you framed it, I think that second part he doesn't get enough credit for. The fact that he does try these things under the biggest or on the biggest stages. I mean, that's phenomenal that he has the guts to do that. And it works out so often. It's just unfortunately at the US Open, for whatever reason, it's just, I feel like a couple times it's just backfired, and it's hard to blame somebody who's had a career and so much success off of those exact things to be like, oh, well, now he shouldn't do it. Like, this is how he plays golf. Like, it's amazing.
You know what I've noticed, Max, and I know you played in this U.S. Open, so I guess you were kind of a part of this, but what was kind of happening in this U.S. Open, your thing, this was going down. We're seeing this from Jason Day. Phil.
Yeah, you're right. We got a little bit of flip.
You're bringing it back.
You know what? I'm gonna pay. Yeah, Justin Rose says he has a room to pay homage to his win. I'm gonna have hair that pays homage to this tournament in general.
How about that shot?
Yeah, that was pretty sick. That's what we call a good miss.
Yeah, that's a little closer to the ball than you wanted.
It's a little closer. I don't think that he was going for that. Although I will say this, Justin was talking about his little half shank, but when the sand is really, really wet and you have a longer bunker shot. Oh, look at Michael Kim up there on the left. He's even skinnier than I remember him. Michael Kim gets 10th place, I think, in this U.S. Open. Plays unbelievable golf, or he was in 10th place. So when it's wet bunkers and you have a longer bunker shot, where a lot of people will say, well, at least you have a lot of green to work with. That's usually not a great case or a great situation for a long bunker shot where you want to splash and run. You actually have to get a little closer to the ball. That's why Justin was talking about hitting a little bit of a draw. It gives you a little bit more room to be shallow. Hunter going for, right behind the ball contact. He gets it a little too close, has a bit of a backstop, but it makes that shot kind of awkward. Watching Phil a couple months ago, I know we didn't do the front nine, but the guy putted unbelievable on Sunday. That is the first putt he makes of any kind of length. I mean, he lived out like 4 times on the front.
Yeah, and Max, headed into the season again, Justin Raystat, #1 on the PGA Tour in putting average. 8th in strokes gained putting was Phil at this time, entering the 2013 U.S. Open. And they showed that whole run of missed putts, lip outs. These putts were running over the edge. Even the putt he had on the par 3, blowing it over the green, that long putt for par. I mean, that thing was end over end. He hit it just where he wanted to, and finally kind of gets one to go. And we're not quite there yet, like we were at Winged Foot when we were rewatching Winged Foot, which, by the way, if you haven't watched, you can check out on our YouTube channel, the Regrift YouTube channel. That things just happen. That just became a thing. We have it there now. But like, he makes these types of putts, and you start to go, okay, then what happened here, right?
Yeah, it's a case of the. I actually think we blow it up too much, because he, in all of the events we've seen him where he almost wins or has these minor heartbreaks, he makes a lot of those putts. He hits a lot of great shots. Maybe the ball doesn't quite go in from the rough, but he hits a lot of phenomenal shots, phenomenal putts. But maybe in his head, because it hasn't happened before and it keeps being so close, he thinks, okay, it is my time. It is my time. And we start to believe in that too, like it is, when it's just, you could look at it the exact opposite way, I guess, and think you also lived out 4 or 5 times and the ball should be going in more often than it is. But I'm looking at this as finally that ball went in. So it's so hard. You're splitting hairs. Look at this leaderboard. I mean, it's a bunch of, I'm not going to say people who have obviously missed, but any great golfer has a lot of close calls. Justin Rose has had more close calls. Jason Day has had more close calls. Phil has obviously had the most close calls. So when you're these great golfers minus probably one guy ever, all of them probably had the same thought of, okay, it's mine now. Like, this is, I'm due. Like, this is where I finally get not finally, but where I get one of my big breaks, especially between Justin Rose and Jason Day, who I don't think, they neither of them had a major yet. So they're both feeling the same thing Phil is, so it's that's what happens when you get the high high caliber field that they have, obviously for the U.S. Open.
Well, you talk about, like what we're thinking when we watch it, right? I mean, when you watch Phil and you go, guy, so close in another U.S. Open.
Yeah.
I was reading a Shipnuck article about this U.S. Open when Justin Rose won, and he compared, obviously, Phil gets a lot of comparisons to U.S. Opens to Sam Snead, who would get close and couldn't close the deal. And Snead said about U.S. Opens, he said they get tougher and tougher on the mental side. You keep remembering the mistakes you made in the past that cost you an Open title, and I guess you keep trying too hard. And, I don't know if Phil's been quoted as saying, I try too hard, or I want this too much. But seeing with 6 runners up, and he's always there, all these different types of golf courses, that's another thing I feel like you forget sometimes is how different these U.S. Open courses that he's played well on, Bethpage and Pinehurst and Merion and Wingfoot. I mean, they're championship golf courses, but they're different types of championship golf courses. And he's been there in every one of them, and all sorts of different types of losses. And it's just interesting to watch him down the stretch again, having a chance.
Well, you got to think the U.S. Open is the greatest test of golf, and it's definitely the most mentally taxing, golf tournament. So you're just adding now for Phil one more thing he's got to think of. It's just one more added pain in his brain that he has to force out. If this is the first tournament you've ever played, you don't have any scar tissue, you're going to have to calm those nerves down, and you're going to have to talk to yourself in your head and say, it's all good, whatever, do whatever your process is. Well, you don't want to add anything to that. It's always been my biggest beef with people who give Rory a hard time about the Masters. They ask him so many questions about it, and it's like, I feel like they are a big part of the reason it's so built up, probably even in his head now, because it's become a chore for him to think and talk about it. It's already so hard to win the Masters, US Open, any major. So you don't want to have any added anything, any added baggage, any added thought. So yeah, it's just, it gets harder every time you haven't done it. Whereas, someone like Jordan Spieth, especially early in his career when he was winning all the majors, and the Tiger, who you're just so used to winning. So what else could happen? Phil has had the kind of the opposite of that as far as U.S. Opens go. This is the most absurd green, by the way. It has the biggest front bowl ever.
Kind of walking after it too. I mean, he liked it,
It looked great, yeah. He did make a point that the sun really comes out right after this rain, which is nice. What a fun putt here. I can't even imagine this. Breaks like 27 feet. That was phenomenal.
Have you noticed, as we've had different people pop in, have you noticed how many putts he's hit that almost went in?
Yeah, so he hits like 3 bombs that should look like they have every right to go in. I think he does that a lot. He is the best putter I've ever seen. So I imagine he lives out a lot.
Oh man, I thought we were going to get a sports promo. I missed those.
I feel like we got spoiled with those the first week.
Man, where's Vinny Testaverde when you need him?
Shane, have you played here?
I have.
Yeah, and you liked it?
Oh.
Did you play the other one, the West or whatever it is?
Yeah, with carts.
Any good?
So fun.
Okay.
We had golf carts. We were doing the, I think it was the women's AM or the girls junior at Rolling Green, and Buddy Marucci actually had us out. We had dinner, and I spent way too much in the pro shop. I mean, this is my favorite. I know I'm joking about the wicker baskets, but I think the Merion logo is my favorite in all of golf. So I went a little hard in the pro shop. Always have that question. You're like, can you use a credit card? Is that okay? Like, nice. Let me call them. I got to up the limit.
I wish they would have said no, so I couldn't be in a bind with my wife.
The Hunter Mahan flat bill was he kind of?
He might have been one of the first on the scene. Yeah,
I think so.
Ricky probably popularized it a bit more as he does.
Were you a flat bill guy ever or no?
I mean, I still wear a flat bill.
Let me see. Can you go level to the screen? No, that's baseball curve. That's got a
Yeah,
baseball.
that's what a flat bill is, my friend. You just curve the
flat's
flat
like
part.
straight.
Well, okay, so you're asking me if I actually just leave it? Nobody does that.
I think Mahan's.
No, that's
Like
bent.
iron on
That
flat.
is bent. Come on.
Look at it.
He curves He curves it just a little bit.
I disagree
Nobody
with you.
leaves it. It goes up. Jesper Parnevik is the only person who's ever had a flat bill.
Flipped us.
Yes, he flipped it up. So Justin talked about it. This tee shot's unbelievable. Like truly, truly remarkable. If he pushed it, he was in the out of bounds. If he pulled it, he's where Hunter was. Now he's got 120 to a pretty receptive pin. We saw Justin 6-iron come back. So that's kind of what he was referencing. I think, looking back on it, Phil is in a spot where he's done the hard work on this hole. He took on the tee shot. Joe and I will talk about this quite often. If it's a difficult hole, quite like 15, are we going to make the tee shot the hard part or the second shot the hard part? Justin went with he's going to make the second part the hard part, so he laid up off the tee, put it in the fairway, then had a difficult 6-iron. Phil decided, hey, I'm going to take on the tee shot. He does. However, Phil also misses, hits a bad second shot, so it's kind of a bummer when you feel like you take on quite a bit of risk and pull off the shot, and then you end up with 70 feet around a bunker. That's a turning point both mentally and physically. Maybe a little bit of doubt creeping in to the golf swing, because that's obviously uncharacteristic of Phil.
This is like an unbelievable U.S. Open par. If this goes in, right?
Especially given what Phil just did back there. Oh. Yeah, so you got to look back. I know everything, again, 2020 hindsight, but Phil hits that close. Rose makes bogey, 3-putt bogey. Rose's 17, 18 are bordering on impossible. And
somebody on Twitter said you birdied. Did you birdie 17 one day?
Yeah, the first day. Not a big deal.
No big deal.
I played the last 6 or 7 holes like 2 under. I hit it on 17. Hit a 3-wood. Hit a 3-wood over the green over like the left side of the green to the left pin and chipped it in for bird.
Nice.
Got on Sports Center. Not a big deal.
Did you have it recorded anywhere? And how many years did you keep the recording of set?
Well, I didn't know
highlight?
It was going to be on ESPN, but so no.
Oh man, we got to find that.
I do remember being at a bar and it came on and I was freaking out.
Did you raise the roof?
Oh yeah, nobody saw it, but I tried to get everyone to look. It didn't work.
Did you flatten your bill or bend your bill when it happened?
I think I was hatless at the time.
Oh wow!
It
Must have been a fancy
flat bill
bar.
being super in. No, it had to be still pretty cool back then. So I don't know what Phil's supposed to do from where he is. I think he can chip it. And I also think that he might be able to putt it, but you got to skirt the bunker. This shot's really not fun that Hunter has. I didn't realize he was in it this long for some reason.
Really in it. The leaderboard actually is I think crazier than you remember it. Headed in to the final round, it was Phil in the lead. Mahan, Schwartzel, and Steve Stricker a shot back. Luke Donald, Horschel, and Rose 2 back. Jason Day 3. Ricky Fowler 4 back. And Michael Kim, with the A next to his name, 5 back in 10th place.
Yeah, Michael, pretty good. We were talking about it yesterday, but I remember the kid who has never shown emotion on the golf course for the most part. I remember Saturday, I'm watching him play on TV, and he makes a bunker shot, and he comes storming out of the bunker with his fist raised over his head, just going nuts, and it was so fun to watch. Obviously, he was on my team at the time. We had three Cal Bears playing in this U.S. Open from the same team. Nice. Myself, Michael Weaver, Michael Kim. Pretty cool. I was the lone shark to miss the cut, but that meant I got to watch and not also make a bunch of bogeys on the weekend.
Max, I got a question from at Gap Golfer. I wonder, do you think
Is
that's
it the
Gap
Gap?
wedge or big fan of the
Uh,
Gap?
I'm gonna go with big fan of the Gap and their many sweaters.
Did you used to have the big Gap sweatshirt that said Gap on it? Did you ever get
I
one of
think
those?
everyone did.
Yeah. One year, my dad, who wasn't awesome at holiday gifts, he got everybody in the family. That was his only present. Was everybody got a Gap sweatshirt?
That's a good gift. Everybody
Good
likes
gift.
that. Yeah.
Usable. Years of use.
Yeah.
Golfer that works at the Gap asked, "Where did you stay this week?" Which I don't really know why. If you can remember that, or if you know.
Well, I can. My whole family's from Philadelphia, so I stayed with my aunt and uncle at their house. So free. It was free. It was like 40 minutes. I have a bunch of stories about that, but I got lost one day and actually got a police escort into the range. It was the whole thing. I was having a panic attack. I had a practice round all set up. I didn't know how it worked. I thought I wasn't gonna be able to play. I found a police officer because I got lost, and I was on the other side of the like gate that you needed to be in to be like on the inside where like because what Justin was saying is they actually a bunch of the community. He's thinking about it. He must love this.
He eats this up, doesn't he?
He loves this. He's like, all right, screw it, I'll chip it. Give the people what they want. Back in the day when you had to actually tend the flag.
And the
Good
tending.
memory. Good memory. Because if you don't, that would have been the worst make in the history of golf. So you see how much of a kicker there is on that right side. So putting it,
Yeah.
you have to put it in the rough. Although with the U.S. Open on the line, this is probably the scariest shot ever.
Oh no.
Yeah, so mini blade. I mean, that's kind of the miss. If he fats it, he has the same shot all over again. So not exactly there was a low percentage on each end. You could argue that if he putts it left of the hole, he has a shorter putt, but
So
he took it on.
so
like
lob
he
wedge. I
does.
mean, this is what I was reading was it was lob wedge, gap wedge with the two shots, and he makes bogey with both. Spoiler alert. But
Yeah, I would say that this bogey. I would wonder if they just feel the same because I do remember 13 being a bigger deal. This is I don't know. I wouldn't say worse, but he hit such a freaking good tee shot. That was a
right.
pretty. I think the swing he makes on 13 is good. I think the decision or club or whatever was bad. The shot just like type he played. That was a bad golf swing. Like that was a leaky. I mean, that's a no-brainer for Phil Mickelson to hit pretty close. The other one, like I said, looked like a good swing. It just went way too far.
Here you go.
Nice double. Kimchi. I love him. Got to play with Ricky. I mean, he was king before, but him getting to play Sunday with Ricky, I could not have been a lot more jealous. Look how skinny he was. My gosh. He was like 120 pounds.
Jesse have asked, since you have so much family in the area, you have to be a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. Is that fair to say?
My mom is a big Eagles fan. My dad is a big Steelers fan, so the family is a bit split. We lean a little more towards the Steelers, but yeah, their whole, that whole side of the family, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers. So grew up watching all that, still do. But yeah, they're your typical. My mom's your typical Eagles fan who everything. The world is always coming to an end. She used to say that Mark Sanchez was purposely losing football games.
Oh wow!
She's your typical Philadelphia fan.
Taking shots at.
I grew up on all of that. Phillies beating my Dodgers. Matt Stairs taking us like 800 feet deep. My mom laughing in my face.
The rough looks like if you can't, whatever this club is, I just feel like, no, I mean, you're not seeing the shot like directly on top, so we don't know how it's sitting, exactly how it's sitting, but I mean, if it wasn't sitting up, if you didn't get lucky, was it almost a pitch out, or could you advance a salmon iron?
No, there were times when, especially they did the graduated rough system, but yeah, if you got a few lies here and there. I mean, I hit it in the rough a lot, so I had a high probability of eventually getting some good lies, which I did. But yeah, you would get lucky here and there. But even when you did, you're hitting. It's a difficult shot. But there were a lot of lies I had that were just, it was there's not even a question of hitting the golf ball, forward. You're hoping that you can somehow get it back to the fairway. They were tough. I remember, I was right by where Jason was on 18 on that left side, and I tried to squeeze a 6-iron out of it, and I hit it 40 yards short of the green. So he had a pretty good shot, all things considered, right there. Very, very, very difficult rough in every single sense. I actually liked it around the greens, chipping. I had good touch that week, especially with the little kind of blast flop shot, but the problem was getting it there in the first place in 2. And like I said, 18, that left side to me was as thick as it could be. This hole's so hard. I mean, this unbelievable shot just to have this look at 2.
I was talking to you a bit about, Phil never being scared to try stuff. Last 2 holes of the U.S. Open leading, and Justin has to hit probably a club there. I mean, I'm not sure what they said or what they called what the club out was, but it wasn't a lob wedge or a sandwich. It didn't look like. And then he's got to hit the 3-wood on 18. I mean, you're talking about in the most pressure-packed situation that he's been in, he's having to hit these 2 maybe uncomfortable shots right around the hole, right?
My mom just sent me my putt I hit on 16 and then my birdie on 17.
Nice.
Shout out to my mom. Yeah.
Can we get your mom on the broadcast?
Yeah, I mean, she'd love to be. I think what he said that was just so enlightening and something that I guess you could kind of gloss over, but I think it's very important is golf still caught, to end the tournament, he still needed to improvise, and that's golf in general. There's very few tournaments and shots where it's just, trackman golf, where you're just hitting the golf ball to a number. Like even when you do, he had 2 perfect shots and he has the same shot on 17 and 18 and plays one with a pitching wedge 9-iron and this one with a 3-wood. Whereas earlier in the week, he had hit a lob wedge. And it's remarkable how much there is that goes into winning a golf tournament and playing golf just in general. But he learned from a shot earlier in the week. He has to improvise a bit, but that probably calmed him down a little bit. It gets your brain less in the repetition part of the golf and more into the artistry of golf, the reason he's 5th in the world at this time part of the golf. That's the stuff that doesn't get noticed. We all gawk and awe at his golf swing and Phil's golf swing and Rory's golf swing and the far they hit it and all this. Well, I don't care how good a golf you play for 72 holes, you're going to have a lot of that gets kind of, I guess, remembered less. You're not going to realize just how good those little shots are that he's hitting to give himself so little stress. We're going to see the one on 18 soon. That's phenomenal, but it looks so easy, and the intricacies of golf, especially when it's a much more precise game than maybe your regular Sunday shooter. The little differences in lies is huge, especially, under the gun when he really needed it. That's why he switched to 3-wood. That's why he felt like he could hit a different club on 17.
Mahan swing was so good. I loved watching Hunter Mahan swing it when he was clicking.
Man, what a chip! I used to be able to chip it nice.
Oh, you're watching yourself now?
I mean, I made birdie on 17, man. Let me live.
I saw you chip in before.
I've chipped in before. Right over the top of the pin with a 3-wood. I mean, I'm bragging about this shot that I hit on the Thursday when Justin Rose was about to win the U.S. Open. So that's just the most
what's the line here, Max? Is it that white?
Bro,
this thing is in the distance.
I have no idea. So that's a scoreboard, and I thought that the fairway goes right to left, and I think that the middle was on the left edge of that scoreboard. But I hit it there on Friday, my Sunday, and it missed left in the rough. I don't know. I like that he said he played a cut because I think that had a big part to do with it. You needed to get the ball working into the slope.
My Sunday is pretty good.
That's so freaking good. I mean, man. This one's hard to watch. For people who don't like getting sick,
What's that?
I don't like this putt. He lips out like 5 times to end
He
the.
really does. You know, he's going to go down. There are a lot of guys that have won one major that we think, you know, are surprised maybe they've only won one. Jason Day, during a stretch, was in every major, it felt like, you know?
Masters, I think Schwartzel birdie's last 4 to beat him.
Right.
Obviously, this one. The whole year when he ended up winning the PGA, he's having battles with Spieth every other tournament. It felt like the guy's an unbelievable golfer. I hated that putt left out because he did so much right.
Yeah, in 2013, Jason Day, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
3rd at the Masters, tie for 2nd at the U.S. Open, tie for 8th at the PGA Championship. This starts a run of 4 top 9 finishes in a row in U.S. Opens and 5 top 9 finishes in 6 U.S. Opens, because he finished 2nd in 2011 to when Rory blacked out and beat everybody by a trillion. And I mean, he has 9 top 10s in majors between 2013 and 2016. Including, obviously, that win at the PGA Championship. So, yeah, around a lot.
That's pretty good. Obviously, a tough pin to get it close to. You pull it and you're chipping down the hill with that bowl behind it. Obviously, you push it, you're in the bowl. Perfect angle. This one was always so deceptive. I mean, it's so uphill, you can barely see the whole flag. That's a beautiful golf shot. The hardest thing I feel like at the end of a U.S. Open is you, like Justin was saying, you're playing in your process over and over again, but all of a sudden you're behind, and now you have to take on golf shots that you wouldn't, you know, normally, just because they're so hard. And now all of a sudden you feel like, okay, I got to make a couple birdies in the tragedy, part of this golf course. And I feel like that's so difficult to change your mindset on the fly like that.
I love watching U.S. Opens and kind of being a part of these USGA championships, because I just feel like the golfer and the caddy have to. What a shot!
Yeah, see, I knew I was about to happen. Sorry to cut you off. A reason I feel like Phil doesn't hit a lot of short irons and why he does feel freed up to miss fairways is because he has the ability to do that, where people from the fairway couldn't seem to do that.
Right. Got a Justin Ray stat, Max. You ready for it?
Yes, please.
You played holes 12 through 18 on Thursday and 2 under and bogey free. That only happened 8 other times all week. So, another top 10. Let's count it. You're going to write that in your book. Another top 10.
So I tied Tiger the first round.
Did you?
And I was so happy. And then I shot like 8 over the next day. Did not tie Tiger the second day. But yeah, I do remember I was playing so bad, and I birdied 12, had great par on 14, great par on 16, then birdied 17, par 18. I was like, dang, that was pretty good. 200 in the last, 7 holes. But then I had about 2 hours, and then I had to tee off again for my next 18, and I was pretty tired.
They showed the Hogan plaque. Have you ever hit a 1-iron in your life? Have you ever hit one?
Oh, yeah.
When?
Have you? I mean, I was younger.
But you didn't have one. You just hit it. Did you use one?
We had a Ping Eye 2 1-iron and 2-iron. My friend actually had the same 1-iron. We would practice with it. And then I think my dad had a Hogan 1-iron. And then one day my buddy was hitting his 1-iron at Vista Valencia on the range, and the club head flew off the shaft, and then we just decided never to have a 1-iron again. It's kind of end of an era. How many 1-irons have you had?
I have one iron that a buddy of mine at TaylorMade sent me years ago. I don't honestly, I think I hit it one time and it hurt my hands and I stopped. It hurt. It was
I asked Titleist to make a 1-iron back in the day or see if they could, and they just said that 1-irons nowadays are so they're like just not optimal anymore. Just the way the golf is made.
Weird.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they do it for the British Open, but I don't think that it's very useful.
So if you call, now that you're kind of more famous, if you called Titleist, do you think they'd make you one?
Nope. Still not there.
Nope.
This is one of my favorite swings ever.
Like, you can't stop it on the screen, right?
As much as I love this golf course, and I really, really do, there's no BS about it. Like, I love this golf course. I didn't love the 18th green because the front half is sloped back to front, but the second half runs away, and it's already going to be hard to hit the fairway. But second of all, he bombed it and hit 4-iron in, and he was between 4 and 3. It was a little too penal. I think like something like 22% of the field hit the green in 2. Man, that was a good putt. Hit the green in 2. So I just thought it was a little bit too demanding. And I know that sounds, people are going to say, you want it to be easy. It's not that. It's just that was as well struck a golf shot as you could have, and the ball still rolled off the back of the green. You need to. I thought that the back of that green could be a little bit flatter, and you would have gotten very similar results with a few more birdie looks that were reasonable. Didn't feel fair is the wrong word. It's all fair. It's all relative. But that shot should have been. I don't know where else to land that golf ball. And if you're going to tell me land it a yard shorter, then I'm going to tell you 1 yard short of that goes off the front of the green and it's dead. So it becomes a little bit absurd at some point.
Our pal Gap Golfer asked, who were you paired with in the first 2 rounds? Do you remember?
Matt Betancourt, who's famously told everyone that he has 145 holes in one, and Russell Knox. Russell Knox obviously goes on to be a winner, and he's an all-around stud. And I remember playing with him, thinking, my gosh, this guy is good. He hits it straight. But I did have my first, professional golf moment where on our maybe 13th, 14th hole of the tournament. It's the second day, Friday, because we had the rain. And Russell is 1 under par, 2 under par, and he's very, very much either in the lead or in the top 5. And all of a sudden, all the camera crew shows up, And I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, we get to walk with the camera guy. It's not about, they're not following me, so I'm not any more nervous. And Russell just started making bogeys, and it did feel like, you don't know who it is at the time, but it did feel like it got to him a little bit. He obviously very much got over that because he won super recently after. But it was fun for me to play with someone like him, knowing that, fast forward a year and I'm watching him every weekend on the PGA Tour, doing great things. So that was sweet. And quite a cool intro for me into the professional golf scene.
Talking a little about 18 and Max, speaking of the green and how tough 18 played all week. Justin Ray just sent us a note. Only 20% of the field hit the 18th green in regulation on Sunday. Just 20% of the PGA Tour. Max, you're really on it. Most difficult 18th hole on the PGA Tour. This isn't just majors. On the PGA Tour in the last 40 years. Number 1 was 1985 Doral, plus 0.75 to par. The next was this U.S. Open, Merion, plus 7.1 to par for the players. 1985, you got to go back to find an 18th hole that played tougher than the Merion 18th did during this U.S. Open.
It's both. The tee shot's brutal, and then the second shot is a nightmare as well. Obviously, get close. This is where I thought Phil got the most hosed. That shot is 5 feet from rolling down to 5 feet, and instead it rolls back. He obviously has a birdie look, but it's not particularly easy. But he absolutely flushes whatever he hit right on line, right on the break line. I mean, the ball could have gone in the hole with 5 more feet of pace. Unfortunately, ends up with 42 feet or whatever up and down a hill. So
well, and he's got to be
we
thinking
split hairs when we're looking at why he hasn't won a U.S. Open, but
right. But I mean, with how difficult 18 is, we keep talking 18. I mean, if you've got to make up a shot, and he has no idea what Rose is doing ahead of him, but to make up a golf shot, I mean, just sit there and think you're going to make a 3 on 18. I mean, it's like making a, it's like when Jason Day made an eagle trying to chase down Jimmy Walker in the PGA. I mean,
yeah,
it literally has to feel like you're making an eagle, right?
Yeah, and I think that swing, to your point, exactly right. That swing he made probably did feel like that. Like, oh, there it is. Like, I needed a great swing. Here's my chance. I draw it perfect, and it's a great shot. But again, we're talking about trying to make birdies at U.S. Opens here. We're not talking about just trying to make any old birdie. Like you said, you're trying to make an eagle. It requires, near perfection, and he hit it perfect, and it's 5 feet short.
That is as close as anybody got all day on Sunday to making a birdie. No birdies on the 18th
Yeah,
hole.
just burns the edge. Unbelievable.
Day.
So I love that he talked to us about how he did it. I mean, I think that's so cool. A little sticky. Everybody knows that lie. You try to hit it. People say you fat it. You didn't fat it. The ball just got squeezed. The club got, pushed on by some grass before it hit the ball. The ball goes nowhere. You look like a big dummy. He decides to take that out of play with a crafty little 3-wood. And I think that's so cool.
Reacted like he won. It's interesting when the guy that's one back of you is, still has his hole to play. I mean, that reaction, points up. It was like he knew he just won the U.S. Open, which is a little surprising, I'd say, like I said, considering that he still had Phil to kind of avoid.
It always seems like these little, not little, obviously, but these things that connect people to golf, and then they come back in such a positive way, like Justin with his father, just being able to connect with that as you win. You have this monumentous moment. It always is so cool. Everyone has those. I guess not everyone's quite lucky enough to win a U.S. Open, but it's very cool to see those things, because everyone's had a different journey up to the top, and obviously this means a lot to him and his family, but it's cool that he was able to kind of recognize that. And I think that's another one of those moments you remember when you think of this U.S. Open.
Yeah. I mean, always wrapping up on Father's Day, and, a special moment. I mean, a special moment to do that. And Max, we've watched some crazy finishes. I mean, we watched Winged Foot, crazy finish. We watched the 96 Amateur, which was wild, Tiger going crazy. And we watched the women's U.S. Open, and you get Birdie Kim holing out on 18. I mean, when you talk about the way you draw playing a 72nd hole to win a U.S. Open, I almost feel like my thoughts go to the Justin Rose 18th hole of Merion. It's like that. He played the hole perfectly.
Perfect.
Even with a par, not a birdie. I mean, that's how you win U.S. Opens.
I think that, like you said, Birdie Kim, when she won, I thought that they played equal golf, her and Morgan Pressel, and Birdie just happens to get one to fall at a crazy time. Winged Foot seemed to just be who could be, the first one in the hole, the first one to finish at a number. And this one to me does feel like there's one guy out here playing, like one guy played better golf than the other guys. He was hitting quality shots. He's making good decisions, yes, but I don't feel like there was a decision that was made that was wrong. I just felt like Justin Rose made very few mistakes. He hit the ball unbelievable. He made the putts when he needed to make them. I just think that this comes down to, hey, one guy played superior golf on Sunday, and that obviously was Justin Rose. The way he played this entire last 8 holes, very few poor shots. One semi-bad one on 14, although it was demanding with a bad bunker shot. But, I mean, gosh, he had great shot on 17, great shots on 18. Great shots on 16. I mean, he was playing good golf, the 3-putt here and there, but everyone's going to have that. Phil, a little bit more scramble. Jason Day, not quite as close to the hole. And Hunter seems to be kind of a little bit more of a scramble. Justin Rose played the best golf, and this is a little bit more of, like you had mentioned, a little bit more of a template of how to close out a major. He just played pretty close to flawless golf without a whole lot of crazy going on around him, minus Phil's hole out on 10.
This golf course looks unreal. Just like every shot looks unbelievable.
You just like never really feel like you're breathing, or you can never catch your breath. Every shot's going to be hard. He hit a long iron here, not a bad shot, doesn't kick his way. Now he's got this chip that just is straight down the hill. Phil hits a great shot and still has this putt that's swooping and going straight down the hill. You just never really feel comfortable. I wonder if he chipped from my divot where I chipped in from, because that's exactly where I was. I wonder if they're going to put a plaque down. They should put a plaque down.
You know what? I'll talk to Buddy Marucci. What would you want it to say? Let's go over that first, because I want to present it with the verbiage correct.
I want it to say...
I'm surprised they didn't show replay of it, by the way, right here.
Max Homa 2013... was one of only 8 people to finish in top. Ooh. This is going to be a big plaque. One of only 8 people to finish without a bogey in the last 7 holes.
Do you want us to put your
plaque?
Twitter handle on there?
Yeah, at MaxHoma23. We'll adjust if ever change. Not to mention, Sean Stefani made a hole-in-one that kicked off of that hill, so he'll probably get a plaque before I get a plaque. All good, all good.
I mean, it's well done.
Really well done, but yeah, I mean, good luck, man. 20% of the whole entire field has hit the green on 18. Yeah. So the field played one of the top 20, then you got to make 1 birdie.
Yeah, the field played 18, 50 over on Sunday, 50 over par.
Shane, would you rather have an impossibly difficult 18th hole like this one, or like finishing hole like this one, or like 18 at Cherry Hills, or would you rather have a par 5 that's a bit easier, like Aaron Hills, or I guess Aaron Hills wasn't particularly easy, but you get my drift. Which do you rather? Yeah, Pebble.
Do I prefer a really tough finishing hole for U.S. Open or par 5?
Yeah. Or
I think
U.S. Open.
I think as someone on the TV side, the drama of what we saw at Chambers Bay, with the chance for an eagle and birdies and those things happen on 18, and obviously with what we've always seen, with Pebble and what Pebble brings. I mean, I think it's fun for the golf fan to see, birdie opportunities, and I do feel a lot of the time when you get to these brutally tough finishing par 4s, it's kind of hold on to your hat, flat brim or otherwise. So I just feel like.
Nice.
In the booth, the par 5's fun for me because you're going to get a bigger moment if a birdie or an eagle happen. But I feel like traditionally as a U.S. Open fan, I feel like it makes more sense to the championship to have one like this, where like Justin Rose won the U.S. Open because he made 4 on a hole that a lot of guys could not make 4 on. He didn't make an eagle or birdie. He just made a par. And to me, U.S. Opens are, you par your way to victory a lot of the time, especially in the ones on these kind of traditional golf courses like Merion, Wingfoot, Oakmont, places like that. I mean, Oakmont 18, are you kidding me?
Oh. Yeah, nightmare.
DJ played that hole well. Jeez.
That's probably the best played hole in the history of golf.
Gosh. Well, Cabrera did it too.
You got to be feeling so good if you're Justin Rose. Like,
yes,
no one's birdie 18. Someone's going to need to beat me. Like, say goodnight. He was the first Englishman in a while, correct, to win a US Open?
First Englishman to win a major championship since Nick Faldo in 96, and first Englishman to win a U.S. Open since Jacklin in 70. And interestingly, you talk about they were showing Ryder Cup highlights earlier. Max, third European U.S. Open winner in the last 4 years at this point was Justin Rose. So, you see that trend, and obviously, Congo was a little more saturated, I think, than you'd expect from a U.S. Open. But, I mean, the Europeans were tough, man. I mean, these guys are they're just tough. I mean, that crew that show up, when it was USA versus the Europeans, it was just, I mean, these guys play tough golf courses really well.
Yeah, I do remember at the end of this summer, we had our Walker Cup, and the U.S. side hadn't won a USGA team event in quite some time, and we thumped them pretty good, and it felt good because we did kind of feel like someone needed to win something. The Ryder Cup teams had some trouble. The Solheim Cup teams, I think, had some trouble. So we decided, the Curtis Cup teams, I think, also had some trouble. So we decided we're going to kind of step in there and and try and get us a win because the Euros were making themselves very, very, very present.
Hey, Max, that's a beautiful time for a segue. Do you mind plugging next week's Regripped?
Yeah, next week we're doing, I guess time's up for debate. We'll probably be doing at 3 EDT, but we will be rebroadcasting, regripping the 2013 Walker Cup at National Golf Links of America. I played that one. It was still only 2 days, but I played 3 rounds this time. And yeah, it was best week of my life, most fun I've ever had. Such a cool experience getting to play at a team event. Makes me want to do it even more. And I'm looking forward to getting back and watching. What a cool team. Justin Thomas, we get to see a young Justin Thomas play. Obviously an absolute stud. So next week's going to be cool. I don't think I've ever rewatched it. Spoiler alert. Maybe I set a record that no one's ever broken that day. I don't really remember.
Have to you know what?
Maybe.
Hey, you know what? Justin Ray can sit out. I know that.
Yeah, you can sit out on that. I know that
Sit out, Justin. We got that one.
I know that one. Actually, you know what? Write it down. I'd like to read it.
Put it in the note.
Put it in the note.
Bamberger, who is one of my favorite golf writers in the world, wrote a piece for Sports Illustrated. I always dive into SI Vault stuff when we do these. And he wrote this great piece about Merion. His piece was all about Merion. And, you talked about it. Was it Nobilo? You said it was going to be the lowest scores ever or whatever.
Yeah. I was glad that Justin said the same thing, by the way.
Yeah. It was, you guys were right on the same page. But Bamberger's piece was a lot about Merion and it just holding up. It was 6,800 yards on Sunday, and distance is king and all these things. And he wrote Merion held up as Fenway holds up, as Yosemite holds up, as Catcher in the Rye holds up. And I just love that. It piecing together things throughout history that maybe seem like they might fade away, and they just don't. I mean, they're never going to, right? Like beautiful jazz. Merion is a place that is always going to host and be great for championship golf. And what I love about this golf course is it's an unbelievable place for amateurs, for professionals. I mean, anyone can kind of go play it and feel like they have a shot. They might not have a shot, but it's just fun. It's fun for a golf fan to watch this and know that it's not 1 trillion yards, it's not 7,800 yards. It's just it's a tough test.
This reminds me a lot of why Riviera is thought of so highly. It's a very similar reason. I know that this course is probably a little trickier in the sense that it's not quite as obvious where the middle of the fairways are, like I've mentioned multiple times. But it is a golf course where it's like, hey, like hit it here and then hit it here and you'll be all right. And then you don't hit it there and it's looking at you, it's kind of laughing at you saying, I told you where to go. Like you did, this isn't, I'm not telling you need to hit a driver 310 yards. I'm not telling you need to hit these high, soft 5-irons. I want you to hit a 3-iron here, and I want you to hit an 8-iron there, and do it. Prove it to me. And that's where I know we had you had referenced some sort of metaphors or something to she's looking over at her over at you. You can see her kind of eyes looking at you over her fan or whatever. Like that's what it is. She's glancing at you. You still need to go. You need to make your move. You need to do your thing. But there's no trick to it. You just got to get there, and that's what makes it good for the everyday fan as well. There's nothing that Phil can do so supremely better than you just physically as far as length in this that would make this golf course that much less attainable for you. The fairway's the most important part. Then you got to go to the green, and now you're going to be in a good spot. But if you don't, it's literally going to just punish you, and that's fun. Like, that's cool. You see this great finish because of that. It's demanding, and you're seeing these phenomenal golfers, battling that exactly. You see a reason a 22-year-old me gets absolutely crushed the second day because I wasn't patient enough and my game wasn't tight enough to stand the test of a golf course like this. And it was infuriating because I'm hitting 4 irons off the tees. Like, this should be normally quite simple to be in the fairway and on the green and make 12 footers.
When you get a chance like this, when you get a chance you qualify in, what'd you shoot in qualification? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Maybe 8 under or something.
I didn't. You know what? I got all these notes. Nothing. Justin Ray, nothing. We got nothing on Max Homa, how he got in, his strokes gained, in his qualifying.
There was a minus in front of the one in the tournament. I know that.
It was probably under par. But when you leave, like if you take me back to 2013, in a younger Max, and you leave, missing the cut, you play in the U.S. Open, it's a huge deal for you, I can only imagine. And I'm assuming it was a huge deal in terms of seeing the players you always wanted to see and getting kind of an up-close look at what they play and how they do it. Is this week instrumental in what you do next?
I wouldn't say instrumental, but it gave me a head start. I felt like my first tour event, which I played quite well at, I had already seen all these people. I'd already met Tiger. I'd already seen the biggest stage. The USGA does it up as much as anything I've ever seen as far as the stands and everything. So I get to a tour event, which would have been, I think, a little more eye-opening other than the fact that I'd already kind of done this, 3 months prior. So, yeah, it's not like I left there with any more confidence about my game, but I learned that I was quite disappointed in myself because I knew that a U.S. Open was a mental test, and I was put in a bit of a tough spot. I had to play 30 holes the second day, and it got to me on the back nine. I very well could have made the cut. I was quite outside it, but I could have made the cut if I would have played like I finished the round prior. And I was just frustrated with the golf course beating me. I was taking on shots you couldn't. And when I left that round, I realized, man, I really mentally wasn't sharp enough. I wasn't controlling my I don't know, focus, my attitude wasn't there. So I learned a little bit about that. So I wouldn't say that the week was instrumental, but I felt like I learned a little bit, or I learned a lot of it. And I learned how important it is to prepare, like Justin said. And also I thought I over-prepared. I could go back to how I kind of maybe normally prepare. But yeah, it wasn't quite instrumental, but it's never a bad thing to have a little bit of a lead into your professional career being one of the biggest tournaments in the entire world. I mean, that's
right,
not,
yeah,
if you
no.
go to the fries.com big PJ Tour event, it feels like kind of nothing compared to what you just did.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And so, I mean, you're watching, gonna let Hunter go. Phil's got a hole it, or it's Justin Rose U.S. Open title. Just a couple more things on Merion. I just wanted to get this in because I feel like we talked a lot about strategy and how you played the golf course. Driving accuracy was so important. The value of hitting a fairway was on average worth more than half a stroke per hole. Players that missed the fairway averaged plus 0.6 to par. You hit the fairway, you were basically at even par for that hole. So not long, but massively important to get the ball in the fairway. Phil obviously misses the fairway here at 18 and wasn't able to get it up on the surface. I wanted to get this in before we were done, and I hope we get one more shot of the Phil Mickelson bag. Did you see that Phil has just it looks like something you buy at like an Edwin Watts or a PGA Tour Superstore. It's the all black wool, and it has an X on top head cover. No brand, nothing. It's remarkable.
This the Frankenwood?
I feel like he might have lost his head cover, and somebody had to go get that out of the lost and found. I'm not kidding. If you ever see Phil and you feel comfortable enough, I need to know what was up with his Merion head cover.
Yo, my mom is on fire today. Oh, never mind. Mom, that's only the first. Hey, that's only the first round.
Will you post some of this stuff? Will you post some of these videos on social or no?
No, probably not.
Come on,
but
man.
My mom did. My mom said I shot 5 under in the first round of the U.S. Open local. Hey, Shane, what are you
Okay.
doing here if you need to make this? Like, are you hitting a screaming one in there, or are you just going to
He's
try to
gotta
like
be.
dunk it? Okay,
It's missed
you're going
the
to get
green.
it on the ground running?
It's make it or miss the green.
So we talk about this a lot. Do you think that any of this has to do with the whole doesn't matter if he gets second, third, or fourth, or fifth? Winning is all that matters?
Yes.
I think that helps a little bit because you better believe I'm trying to get that thing up and down.
Right. I mean, like we were talking about this leaderboard, dude. I mean, this leaderboard was stacked full of guys you'd heard of, but, you're talking about a player, like you said, this is a big week, having a great week. You're trying to make 4,
Yeah,
You'd love to chip it in.
Maybe. There's some thought in the back of your mind of that. Very cool. That's very, very cool. So much less glamorous than you think. Just sitting there in the lunchroom watching golf with his caddy and his wife. I mean, just like normal times.
Justin Rose moved to number 3 in the world, tying his best career position to that point with this win. And yeah, I mean, just a U.S. Open victory. We watched a lot of these on our Regrip series, and this is as much of a U.S. Open win as I can remember of the things we've watched. I mean, just
it looks like that. Yeah, it looks like somebody that's going to be number 1 in the world and somebody who's around for a long time. He seems like a no doubter not just after you watch this, but I mean, this is a clinic. I mean, I can't watch another film one, man.
We're not watching Bethpage. we're not watching Shinnecock.
Because he's such a good sport. He just kind of like smiles and goes, I guess it's not my time. And it's like, inside it's tearing him apart. He just does such an amazing job, but it's just so hard to watch. Phil did have the sideburns like I had last week going, so maybe that was it. Maybe you need a mullet.
They were getting a little out of hand. Somebody on Twitter was barking about my beard not being a beard, by the way. Who was that?
I don't know how your beard wouldn't be a beard. That's just literally the definition of beard.
Who was this? Well, they got to find this person.
It's not a mustache. It's a beard. Nobody said it was a big beard.
At William, the person's handle is just at William.
Wow. Listen here, William. We should have kept him on to see what he was doing. JR.
There's
Junior.
13 minutes left in this broadcast. That's the final leaderboard. All right, Max. As we wind down,
what'd you think, Shane? What'd you think?
I mean, awesome. I want to go back to Merion. I want to go back and play it. I want to go back and do a U.S. Open there. Justin Rose kind enough to join us on Regrip today and just talked about falling in love with Merion the week before the U.S. Open when he was out there with the members. Will you speak on that a bit? Because when you go to a golf course for a tour event, it's not like what the golf course is like. I always feel like that when we go to U.S. Open golf courses is, if you're at Pebble or a private club like Wingfoot 6 weeks out or 8 weeks out, and then you get there for the actual tournament, there's so much going on that the golf course sometimes can feel a little overshadowed, And so the difference to you in how a golf course feels tournament week and then other times you get a chance to play them.
Yeah, maybe it's a little different for you and I because I get the point, but since I am it only feels like the golf course to me. But I guess the point is that the golf course feels like it is. It always has these stands and it always has a lot of people around. Whereas if I went back and played it, it wouldn't feel like the Merion I know. So it's this huge testament to everyone involved in setting it up. Obviously, getting to talk to Buddy Marucci today was so cool. A golf course it's a good golf course when he has his hands on it. He's a very established, esteemed player, his whole career. So you see a golf course like this get changed here and there, the nuances, the stands, the membership. I just remember it being great and fun. And and it looked like it should. I don't know how to quantify that, but it looked like it should.
I'm with you.
I saw a lot of golf course, but I saw a lot of crowd. I saw a lot of all the things. But I always feel fortunate to your question, to your point, that as much as these stands get in the way, and as much as there is stuff built up, I'm so fortunate that I get to walk the fairways, because I do feel like I get to live the golf course in the way that it kind of wanted to be, brought to light, I guess.
There are certain venues that feel like they were built for this championship,
Right.
And I feel like Merion is that. It feels like this golf course was put on this earth to host things like this and have those types of finishes. And I feel like there's probably a handful of those golf courses when you think about it. I feel like that about the Open as well. When you go across the pond, there's certain Open venues that when you watch it on TV or you're there, you're like, man, this was built for a British Open, And I like I said, I just can't wait to get back to this place, broadcasting or otherwise, because it's tough. It's fair at times, but you have to hit the golf shots,
Yeah, I love getting to see a golf course. Yeah, just like you just said, you got to hit the golf shots. There's not a lot. I feel like it lends itself to any type of player, but that type of player better be accurate, better be precise, better have a heck of a lot of skill. So I think that's really cool. You don't see that a ton, and I also think it's a cool kind of, I guess, nowadays we all argue about it, but the course 6,800 yards, guys, and 1 over just won the U.S. Open. It's not all about making par fours, 490, 520 yards. There's some unbelievable short par fours on this course. There's some great par fives on this course, and there's obviously great par threes. The nuances of the golf course are cool. This is where I would reference when people talk about length, and some courses 7,600 yards. I would look at this one as the absolute epitome of kind of perfect architecture, especially for the Northeast style of golf, where you get the rain, you get the thick, lush rough. Maybe you're going to have some soft greens. This course held up, and it's cool. Like I said before, we saw the right winner here. Looking back on it, I mean, Justin played so freaking well. He obviously had been playing great leading into it with those stats that Justin Ray gave us. So it's cool. It's cool that he came out. It doesn't feel like Winged Foot. There was no collapse. There was no nothing. There were some not great golf shots here and there by some people behind, and the guy who won didn't do that, which is how it's supposed to be.
I'm right there with you. So we heard from Justin Rose earlier, and I asked him about this picture of a tunnel that he sent to his caddy. Ben Hogan, when he won here in 1950, had a Latin phrase that translates to "with it or on it" that he'd follow throughout the week. Max, I feel like when we get back to golf and you get back to this major championship thing, are you cool if I send you phrases or motivational picture? I mean, can I start sending you this stuff during the week?
Always open to it.
Okay.
I get one from my buddy Peter all the time, though, and it's always the same one. It's look good, feel good, you play good, you get paid good. So you're going to have to top that one from Dion. But I'm always open to new ones.
Okay, I think I can sneak in that world and maybe just maybe beat that. Yeah, there you go. It was the 2013 U.S. Open at Merion. You see there, Justin Rose won. Justin joined us. Thank you to Justin. Thank you to Buddy Marucci. Thank you to the USGA. They're so kind in putting these up and sending them over to me and allowing us to download them and talk over them. Really, thanks to Dan Hicks and Johnny Miller, too, because they allow us to do that as well. A reminder, there's a USGA streaming app. If you're a golf fan, which you probably are.
If you're watching this and you're not, we need to talk. I need to know what's going on.
Man. You went if you're here and you hate golf, you went down a rabbit hole that I have yet to find on the internet. I'll just say that. And I go down a lot of rabbit holes. The USGA streaming app, in partnership with our friends at Cisco, have more than 250 hours of on-demand programming. Things like 24-hour Tiger Woods marathon. Don't sleep. Watch Tiger.
That sounds right up my alley.
To get into that. Final round telecast of the U.S. Opens dating back to 1966. Don't start it, Max. I was not born in 1966. More than 50 films.
No, you were born before 1966.
No, come on. See, you can't even follow up with the joke. You're like the guy saying this isn't a beard. What do I got to do here? And thanks to Cisco. Now more than ever, we're seeing that staying connected to people is very important. Max and I stay connected through apps and text and FaceTimes and Cisco. Everything we use, as we're doing right now. People are looking for new ways to chat and to talk, and the technology has never been more relevant and important in our lives. Thank you to Cisco. They're doing an unbelievable job with everything in and around where we're at currently in our world. And again, thank you to the USGA. They're my friends. They're your friends. Next week, Max Homa, tell them what we're doing.
Well, listen, we're doing the 2013 Walker Cup, played by yours truly, National Golf Links of America. We're going to run through the last day of singles matches. Spoiler alert, America dominates. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Really, really cool golf course. My favorite golf course in the whole world. So
Wow.
Tune in. It'll be sweet. It's not a golf course that gets any coverage ever. So you'll get to see why it's such a hidden gem right next to Shinnecock, which obviously gets all the U.S. Opens. National, just a little shorter, but the first true link style golf course I'd ever played. Every single hole has character. Honestly, if you're going to watch more for the golf course than for me, because my match didn't matter. So watch for that.
Do you happen? I'll talk to you off camera about this, but do you happen to maybe have your Walker Cup garb still available that you could maybe wear for the broadcast?
I have a crazy story. I'll say it again next week, but we had to ship back home our clothes, because we had too many bags. And one of them got lost, and like someone stole it. I basically found out. I lost a lot of stuff. I found out through, I think, social media. Somebody went to a live auction one day, and some of my stuff was up for auction. They found my shoes, and that was it. They bought them for me. I paid them back, and very, very weird situation. So no, I don't. But I still have the memories, Shane, and that's really all that matters.
I mean, that memory's over pictures every day, buddy. Every day.
Always.
If you didn't live it, what are you even talking about it? That's Max Homa. I'm Shane Bacon. This is Regripped. This is our 4th installment, and I feel like we're only getting better. Thanks to Jason. Thanks to Kayla. Appreciate you guys as well for doing everything you do to make us look better and to make this look better. If you guys like this, you might like our podcast. It's called Get a Grip. See, Regripped, Get a Grip. It's kind of the same thing. Subscribe to that. Get a Grip. We'll have a new one on Monday morning for you, and we'll be back next Saturday.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, USGA. Thanks, Cisco. Hope everybody's staying safe. Please wash your hands.
And don't steal Max's stuff ever again. Leave Max's stuff to Max.
Yeah,
man.
please don't.
Don't steal the stuff. It's not
so
nice.
creepy.
Terrible.